Welcome, Lapham crew. Sorry about the delay. We got gremlins in the wires. I had to reset the computer because Skype would not quit ringing. Did a sound test and made sure everything was working, and Skype just refused to go away. So it sounded like I was just consistently getting a call that I was trying to ignore forever, and then the sound on my computer would not mute it. But welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight, so make sure you secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, January 5th, Sunday, January 6th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I hope you had an awesome weekend so far. Thank you so much once again for joining us this evening on one of our many outlets. If you're listening live right now, you're listening to us on Spreaker.com. You can also find us on KPNL Radio, which you can find at kpnl-db.com. Make sure you check us out on your free time, whether you're working out, or working it. You can find us, once again, on Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podcast Chaser. If you got some free time, make sure you go over to our Facebook and Twitter. Check out our pages there. Also, go to our YouTube, make sure you subscribe, follow, and like, and give that bell a little tickle. That way, next time we have a show come on, you'll be made aware of it. So, we were supposed to have Mr. Robert Regi on this morning, but due to the fact that he had to get some polyps removed from his throat, he couldn't make it this evening, but we are going to schedule a future date, and I think that's actually going to be his last show. He's kind of pulling away from the paranormal realm for a while and focusing on life and many different things like that. So, this evening we're going to be finishing this book, Hollywood Urban Legends, The Truth Behind All of Those Delightfully Persistent Myths of Film, Television, and Music. So this chapter is called Dead Legends. Mark Twain was arguably the most famous person in America in 1897 when he found himself having to refute stories about his demise with the famously wry comment, "Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated." We've all heard that line a dozen times, and we've seen it invoked in stories about everything from the economy. Reports of the death of the bull market have been greatly exaggerated. To sports, reports of the death of defense in the NFL have been greatly exaggerated. In politics, reports of the death of Al Gore's career have been greatly exaggerated. It is one of the most familiar quotes in American lore. There's only one problem. As we like to say here at Urban Legends Central, Twain never uttered those exact words. In late spring of 1897, there indeed were reports that Twain, aka Samuel Clemens, had passed away while abroad. He cleared up the confusion with a cable from London that read, "James Ross Clemens, a cousin of mine, was seriously ill 2 or 3 weeks ago in London, but is well now." The report of my illness grew out of his illness, the report of my death an exaggeration. Hello, beautiful Sister Sandra. So he sort of said it, but he didn't actually say it. Gee, next we'll find out that James Cagney never said, "You dirty rat, you killed my brother." Cary Grant never said, "Judy, Judy, Judy," and Humphrey Bogart never uttered the exact phrase, "Play it again, Sam," in Casablanca. Never mind. So decades after Twain's actual passing in 1910, modern-day celebs such as Kirk Cameron, Adam Rich, and Scott Baio have found themselves in the unusual position of denying reports of their own deaths. They've also found themselves in the unusual position of realizing their careers had peaked before they were legal age, But that's another story for another time. So let's separate the myth from the truth in this list of some of the most ubiquitous celebrity deaths and urban legends of the last 30 years, including false rumors about deaths as well as misleading reports about the ways in which some celebrities were dead actually died. One of the main ones that I can remember is Miss Betty White. I don't know how many times before that they said she had passed, so when she actually passed this time, I was hoping that they'd come through and say, oh, that was greatly exaggerated. She didn't actually pass, but rest in peace, Miss Betty. She did, shortly before her 100th birthday. So myth, we have Kirk Cameron of Growing Pains was killed in a bizarre bowling accident. Reality, Cameron is alive and well, having most recently appeared in the Christian movie Left Behind with his wife, Chelsea Noble, who once appeared on Seinfeld as a woman who was attracted to George because he looked like her boyfriend, only taller and with more hair. A few years ago, message boards on the internet were hot with the rumor that a newspaper in Ridgewood, New Jersey, had reported that Kirk Cameron, best known for his role as Mike Seaver on Growing Pains, had died after slipping and hitting his head in a bowling alley. Hello, Robert. Play it with them jams, Sam. Hello, Robert. That's so funny. Myth. Paul McCartney died more than 30 years ago and was replaced by a female lookalike. Well, wouldn't that be spiffy? Could you imagine? Judy! 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 Poor Sleepy. I feel bad. He really wants to come in here and say hello, but I won't let him come in because he has to go through my room. And that place is a disaster. Anywho, let's continue. Myth. Roy of Siegfried and Roy is dead, and Roy's cousin has replaced Roy. This is kind of a tricky one, as neither Siegfried nor Roy are actually human beings. They're animatronic figures, and as such are immortal and will never die. They'll just get really badly mauled by a beautiful tiger. Myth. Jerry the Beeve Mathers was killed in Vietnam. Reality. Jerry the Beaver Mathers is a middle-aged man who keeps showing up in those Still the Beaver reunion TV movies. One of these days we'll see him in Grumpy Old Beaver. Oh man, wouldn't that be a delightful book? Garlands all year round. Merry Christmas. You're so funny, Robert. But wouldn't that be a good show? Grumpy Old Beaver. Yes. There's so many spoofs and takes you can go with that. This is genius. I think we've got a hit on our hands. A stuntman died during the filming of Ben Hur. Despite persistent claims that the stunt double for Stephen Boyd was killed during the filming of the chariot race and that director William Wyler left the scene in the final cut, there's no indication that anyone was killed or seriously injured during the making of the 1959 epic. The worst mishap on record was Charlton Heston's stunt double sustaining a gash to the chin that required a couple stitches. Well, we can't have that. That'll most definitely kill the poor guy. So questions about the rumored death dominated a press junket for the film, prompting an assistant director to berate reporters and sarcastically claim that 20 men died while making the movie. Well, could you imagine? There's also no truth to the rumor that a stuntman lost his life during the making of How the West Was Won. However, a stuntman reportedly was killed during the making of the silent film titled Ben Hur, which was made in the mid-1920s. Myth. Shirley Eaton, the actress who played the evil villain's secretary, Jill Masterson, in Goldfinger, who dies in the movie after being covered in gold paint, actually died in real life after her skin was unable to breathe through the paint. Oh, I heard that about the Tin Man, too. Now they have body paint. It's not as toxic as real paint. So Eaton walked away from the scene unharmed and retired from acting a few years later at the age of 32. She has lived a mostly quiet life out of the spotlight since then, but in the fall of 2000, she made a surprise guest appearance at an English car dealership, and it was an anniversary party where she told reporters, "I was only in Goldfinger for 5 minutes, but it made me internationally known. That just shows what a funny business it is." Hollywood? What about Hollyweird? Tell you what. So Adam Rich, the little moppet from 8 is Enough, died in 1996. So Reality in 1996, a San Francisco-based satirical magazine called Might, published a cover story titled "Fare thee well, gentle friend." Inside was a lengthy article about the life and times of the late Adam Rich. It was all a hoax done with Rich's cooperation. But predictably, he found himself having to hit the publicity circuit to let people know that reports of his death had been, well, greatly exaggerated. "If you can't laugh at yourself, you've missed the biggest fucking joke of your life," said Rich in a story published in San Francisco Weekly. "We collaborated on a very outrageous, outlandish, embellished story of my death. All too often, the media distorts and inflates and tastelessly exploits celebrities' deaths to sell a magazine. Note, for a detailed account of the Might magazine hoax, pick up the Dave Eggers book, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius." Myth. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy on the Brady Bunch, died of a drug overdose. Reality. Olsen is fine, but the rumors probably started when another actress, Jennifer Runyon, portrayed Cindy in the 1988 TV movie A Very Brady Christmas instead of Olsen. So Runyon's other memorable part was as the young woman with psychic powers who charms Bill Murray in the opening scene of the first Ghostbusters. I love that movie. I still haven't seen the new one, Robert. Robert got to go see it, and he actually saw a bunch of people dressed up like Ghostbusters. That had to be fun. The fact is that so many child stars have had rocky transitions to adulthood and anonymity, it's not hard to believe that yet another one hit the skids. At least 2 former child stars have died of drug overdoses. There's Dana Plato from Different Strokes, died in 1999 at the age of 34, and Anissa Jones, who played Buffy on Family Affair, died in 1976 at the age of 18. Myth. Before shooting her husband and herself, Phil Hartman's wife, Bryn, listened more than 50 times to the song Ava Adore from the Smashing Pumpkins album Adore, with its aching, screeching chorus of "We Must Never Part." I love that song. I love the Smashing Pumpkins. Reality. The Hartman tragedy occurred on May 28, 1998. Adore was released in the United States in June of 1998. Myth. George Reeves, who played Superman on the old TV series from the 1950s, committed suicide when he went insane and actually believed he would fly when he jumped out of a skyscraper window. That was some good LDS, tell you what. Oh wait, yes, it's LSD. I did a lot of LDS as a kid, so I kind of get that confused. Oh my. So yes, sadly, the reality is that Reeves did commit suicide. I don't know about that. I think it was a setup. I think somebody killed him and made it look like a suicide. Anyways, that's just my theory. So by shooting himself in the head in 1959 in the bedroom of his home while a party was taking place downstairs. Yes, isn't that quaint? What a party pooper. Brandon Lee was killed on the set of The Crow by a gang of Hong Kong mobsters after he refused to allow them to control his career. Reality. Lee was killed when a dummy bullet a real bullet without actual gunpowder, was inadvertently left in the barrel of a gun to be used in a scene where he was shot. When the gun was fired, the blank propelled the dummy bullet into his midsection, and no, the scene was not left in the movie. Hey, 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 roomie. My new roomie's in the house. Literally. Rudolph Valentino died after eating food made with aluminum pots and pans. Reality. In the 1920s, aluminum was erroneously cited by some quacks as the source of innumerable ailments. Valentino actually died from a perforated ulcer in 1926 at the age of 31. The kid who played Mikey in the Life cereal commercials did not die from ingesting Pop Rocks candy and washing it down with soda pop. John Gilchrist is alive and well, though the urban legend about his explosive death has inspired an episode of The Simpsons, as well as a scene in the movie Urban Legends. And finally, man, I thought that was the last chapter, because this just looked like, a bunch of damn numbers, kind of like a catalog for different chapters, different stories. Women speak in estrogen. Did you know that? Pretty interesting fact about the female species. We speak in estrogen. So for several years, The Simpsons creator, Matt Groening, has been credited as the author of one of the most widely circulated humor essays on the internet. It's titled Women Speak in Estrogen and Men Listen in Testosterone, and it's about the fundamental differences between men and women. For example, shoes. When preparing for work, a woman will put on a Monday wool suit, then slip on Reebok sneakers. She will carry her dress shoes in a plastic bag from Saks. When a woman gets to work, she will put on her dress shoes. 5 minutes later, she will kick them off because her feet are under the desk. A man will wear the same pair of shoes all day. You can find the article on hundreds of joke sites in dozens of internet chat rooms. Using the ever-valuable Google search engine, I typed in the keywords Matt Groening and testosterone and found more than 170 sites containing the essay. All attributed it to Groening. Sections of the essay have been quoted in a number of newspapers, so in November of 1999, the Edmonton Journal and the Calgary Herald had articles on the subject. How different are men and women? Here are 4 ways from writer and cartoonist Matt Groening in Women Speak in Estrogen, Men Listen in Testosterone. A man has 6 items in his bathroom: toothbrush, toothpaste, shaving cream, razor, a bar of Dial soap, and a towel from the Holiday Inn. The average number of items in the typical woman's bathroom is 437. A man could not identify most of these items. Damn, that's a lot of stuff in that bathroom. Groening's musings also appeared in one of those radio joke sheets that circulate through stations across the country. I remember hearing a duo in Chicago reading the article on the air in the late 1990s. Only one problem with all of this. Groening did not write it, nor has he ever claimed it as his own. The genius who gave the world The Simpsons hardly needs to be taking credit for the mildly amusing article about the differences between boys and girls. Groening has even disavowed the piece in interviews, but once something like this has been unleashed on the internet, there's no stopping it. Not only has it been forwarded thousands of times, it's even been translated into several foreign languages. I'm surprised it's not a collection of bumper stickers by now. So Time says, when a woman says she'll be ready to go out in about 5 minutes, she's using the same meaning of time as when a man says the football game will be over in 5 minutes. Offspring. A woman knows all about her children. She knows about dentist appointments and soccer games and romances and best friends and favorite foods and secret fears and hopes and dreams. A man is vaguely aware of some short people living in his house. Really strange, energetic, short people. So in 1997, the New York Daily News did a story about the essay headlined, Simpsons Guy, No Nitwit Wag. So on a piece of email that's been forwarded to thousands of internet users, Groening is trumpeted as the author of Women Speak in Estrogen and Men Speak in Testosterone, a humorous article comparing the sexes. I didn't write it, Groening told the Daily News. Groening goes on to call the article mildly amusing and admits he laughed out loud when he read the line, Women love cats. Men say they love cats, but when women aren't looking, men kick cats. The Daily News said the mix-up is a near rerun of an episode when internet users started circulating a copy of a graduation speech that Kurt Vonnegut supposedly had delivered to MIT's class of 1997. The purported speech, though, was actually a newspaper article written by the Chicago Tribune columnist Mary Schmick. However, the New York Daily News was unable to ascertain the true author of Estrogen, Testosterone piece. I'll do that in a moment. So 2 years later, Groening told Mother Jones magazine, one of the drawbacks of being successful is that stuff is out in my name and I didn't do it. There's an essay floating all over the internet on the difference between men and women. I did not write it. Groening's denials notwithstanding, the legend continues to grow. So in late 1998, a reporter for the Augusta Chronicle wrote, humorist Matt Groening defines the difference between simply and succinctly. Women speak in estrogen and men listen in testosterone, and the essay continues to land in my mailbox. Time now to solve this cyber mystery. The only author of this essay is me, aka Mr. Richard Roeper. No kidding. Holy crap. He wrote the damn thing 15 years ago. The article appeared in his home paper, the Chicago Sun-Times, on May 11, 1986, under the headline, It's Time to Face the Facts. Men and women are different. In subsequent weeks, it was syndicated to a few other papers, including the San Diego Union Tribune. How it leapt from the internet dark ages of the mid-1980s to cyber immortality, and, for that matter, how Groening's byline replaced mine atop an essay that otherwise has been reprinted verbatim, is beyond me. Somebody, somewhere, probably made an innocent cut-and-paste mistake, and the error was multiplied 1,000-fold over the course of several years. Dope! So as of this writing, the truth has been striking at least a small dent in this urban legend. A few newspapers are now attributed to the infamous piece to yours truly. And I've seen some internet websites that have restored authorship to the correct writer. Not that I'm getting royalties or anything. After years of chronicling urban legends involving other people, I now have a first-hand feeling of what it's like to be trapped in a web of misfortune and misinformation. It's a little frustrating to see my work attributed to someone else, even if there's an implied compliment that people would believe that such a creative force as Groening could have written the piece. Besides, it's not as if I'm being linked with a gerbil. You guys have all heard that story, right? Yeah, we'll just move right along. Yeah. So bibliography and notes. This shows the different places he got his information, etc., etc., so on and so forth. And then, of course, there's the index, which is what I thought that last chapter was. Very nice. We finished the book. We did it. So that, my friends, is the end of Hollywood Urban Legends, the truth behind all of those pesky, delightfully persistent myths of film, television, and the music by Mr. Richard Roeper. Thank you, thank you. I'll be here all week. How delightful. So our next book, I know you guys are super excited about this. You're just like waiting with bated breath. What is she going to read to us next? I cannot wait to see. Oh no, my friend. This is going to be quite exciting. It is still dealing with Hollywood, which I like to refer to as Hollyweird. So Hollywood and the supernatural. And this book actually includes a map with exact locations of Hollywood supernatural phenomenon. Definitely taking this with me to California next time I go. And it's written by a lovely couple. We have Sherry Hansen-Steiger, and then we also have Mr. Brad Steiger. I hope they're not brother and sister, and I just made this completely awkward. So anywho's, on the back it says, "The dark and secret history of Hollywood's supernatural world is revealed here, more frighteningly than ever before. The book presents dozens of mesmerizing stories about the denizens of Tinseltown and their contact with the occult." So, within this book, Oscar nominee Sigourney Weaver was protected by the spiritual presence of naturalist Diane Fossey while filming Gorillas in the Mist. Mae West is, today, a member of the Crossover Club, a group of benevolent spirits that assist newcomers in adjusting to life beyond the grave. While filming a documentary on vampires, host George Hamilton was followed by a unique breed of groupies. Real vampires, can you believe it? They actually exist. George Raft, Mike Mazurki, and Denver Pyle were members of a Hollywood set that joined psychic Doc Anderson in looking for oil. Anderson would walk through the oil fields, and wherever he was when his hands started bleeding, oil was discovered. That's pretty gross. Stay away from that guy. Hollywood and the supernatural presents compelling evidence that Hollywood's fixation with the occult and supernatural is not just fiction. Alright, let's open up this gem. I can't wait to see what is in store for us today. Ooh, there's actually a note of caution to the reader. Some of the scenes and supernatural encounters described herein may be considered frightening and unsettling by certain readers. The contents of this book are intended to be precautionary as well as informative, inspirational, and entertaining. There is no intent to promulgate any particular belief structure or philosophy. The authors ask the reader to proceed with a sense of exploration and the responsibility of discernment. I love the gift of discernment. It's amazing. Alright, we have the table of contents. There's acknowledgments. If you want to buy the book and read it, you can read it. Hollyweird and the Supernatural. Introduction. Supernatural projections from behind the magic lantern. Darkness has always brought us the supernatural. Ghostly forms, eternally restless, move across the face of the earth. Images, undefined, lurk in the thick fog that swirls around naked trees, stretching their bare limbs toward the October moon. A bat, its leathery wings briefly disturbing the awful quiet of the night, swoops low over the prowling form of a wolf, its hungry eyes glowing. That terrible scraping noise coming from the graveyard is the sound of one of the loathsome undead pushing back the lid of its coffin as he prepares to rise, in search of human blood to feed his life force. It is night, and the hours before dawn are filled with the strange and the unknown. We can only pray for light. Although we have always been frightened by the unknown, terrified by tales of ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night, the fear of the supernatural achieved an even greater grip on our collective unconscious when in 1900 it gained a powerful new ally in the nascent art of motion pictures. Georges Méliès, a French pioneer of film, brought audiences into the darkness of theaters and gave them flickering light from a magic lantern that had been blended with horrors of the Grand Gangou. A small theater in 1908, Montmartre, Paris, specialized in dramatic entertainment featuring the gruesome or horrible. How delightful. In 1919, when the German producer Erich Palmer used his camera to peer inside the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, he opened a line of direct access to fears that had been hiding in the human subconscious since Eden. Despite the fact that one will discover Frankenstein listed in film catalogs of 1908, the motion picture community in the United States found its first forays into the supernatural scorned by the public, refused by its exhibitors, and relived from the pulpit. However, with the impetus provided by the arrival of German directors and their sophisticated treatment of preternatural themes, such film masters as Rex Ingram, James Whale, and Todd Browning established the communion between Hollywood and the supernatural that has only grown stronger with time. The essence of our dread of the supernatural lies in our fear of death. For human mortals, with our 70 years and 10, death has always been too final, too great a change. In this ominous decade of the 1990s, yes, another 90s book, delightful. We who live in our condominiums with our shining technology feel a great frustration that we should still share the same fear as that of our primitive ancestors who huddled around the flickering light of an open fire to keep back the darkness. It is no wonder that those who direct the flickering light of Hollywood's magic lanterns should so often concern themselves with presentations that argue against the pessimistic attitude that death is the end, that a brief strut across the stage of life is all there is to existence. Even the most elementary ghost story is a statement that we have within a non-physical element that survives the grave. Even the most simplistic of supernatural tales provides the actors with an everlasting life on film that can long survive their own mortality. From those early efforts to film the unknown and hold it captive to the most sophisticated methods of contemporary cinematography, Hollywood has expressed a deep interest in the supernatural, both in its celluloid creations and in the private lives of its stars, writers, directors, and producers. Spirit guides, ascended masters, secret doctrines, past life explorations, astrological charts, and haunted houses were as much a part of Hollywood in the 20s as they are in the 90s, and may even become more pronounced as the millennium imminently approaches. Mediumship, arcane teachings, tarot cards, and visionary experiences have always been fashionable among the citizens of the Hollywood Hills. As incredible as it may seem, the supernatural happenings that have occurred to certain celebrities off-camera in real life can more than equal the on-camera fantasies of their real-life characterizations. So, in the 1920s, such figures as Rudolph Valentino and his wife Natasha Rambova made mediumship and spirit teachers chic. When the great lover died in 1926, Natasha continued to channel messages from her dearly departed husband, thus establishing a precedent for those who wish to make direct communication with the celestial sound stages. Today's mediums and channels contact the spirits of Rock Hudson and Sal Mineo for the gay community, John Wayne for the conservatives, John Lennon for the maturing flower children, and Elvis Presley for those who want the old-time rock and roll. The spirits of Elvis and those of Princess Grace of Monaco have even been credited with a number of miracle healings. The spirit form of Marilyn Monroe has been seen in many of her favorite Hollywood places. Bob Slatzer, a former husband, has not only felt her ghostly presence on several occasions, but he told us that she materialized physically to him and other witnesses on the anniversary of her death. I wonder what she said. Did she tell him who did it? Many stars have themselves displayed mediumistic talents. Mae West wrote many scripts directed by spirit control while in a trance. And we learned from medium Clarissa Bernhardt that today, on the other side, Mae is a member of the Crossover Club, a group of benevolent spirits that assist newcomers to adjust to life beyond the grave. Comedic genius Peter Sellers was one of the most outspoken advocates of spirit guidance. Among other stars who have displayed an interest in the psychic world are Lee Marvin, Susan Strasberg, John Travolta, Linda Evans, Elk Summer, Clint Walker, Lindsay Wagner, and of course, Shirley Maclaine. It is still difficult for some to accept Shirley Maclaine, the freewheeling mascot of Frank Sinatra's old Rat Pack, as the reigning Hollywood high priestess of metaphysics, but there seems to be no reason to doubt the sincerity of her beliefs. In retrospect, it is interesting to go back to 1972 when she starred in The Possession of Joel Delaney, a supernatural thriller that dealt with a form of witchcraft known as Espiritismo, in which the spirit of a dead person takes control of a living human. She played the older sister of Perry King, who made his debut as the possessed youth. At that time, the actress said that she had come to view her life as having constituted a continual rebellion against the white Southern Christian ethic that had governed her Virginian childhood. "My home is inside my head," she said. "The most intelligent manner of crusading is to work at expanding human consciousness." Shirley Maclaine has most certainly expanded the consciousness of millions. As an avowed advocate of the philosophy of reincarnation, she is by no means alone among those in Hollywood who express a belief that they have lived previous existences. Among the stars who agree that they, too, have been here before are such individuals as Sylvester Stallone, Ernest Borgnine, Loretta Lynn, Juliet Greco, Willie Nelson, David Carradine, Ann Miller, Richard Kant, Rose Marie, Glenn Ford, John Travolta, and Miss Tina Turner. Channeling, which might be defined as spirit mediumship gone Hollywood, was introduced in mid-America primarily through Shirley Maclaine's 1987 television movie Out on a Limb. Although the Los Angeles area has boasted a spirit medium on every block for decades, the two-part movie of her best-selling book set in motion a channeling craze that has many stars swearing by the guidance received from their favorite channels. In certain instances, the celebrities insist that messages are being beamed directly to them from the multi-dimensional entity of their own. Kevin Ryerson, the articulate channel who appeared in Out on a Limb, playing himself, has granted a lengthy interview for this book that very ably defines the process of spirit communication from the perspective of a professional medium. J.Z. Knight, who channels the remarkable entity Ramtha and who advises such Hollywood luminaries as Linda Evans and Richard Chamberlain, was also generous with her time and appreciative of the opportunity to present her work in a manner with which she felt comfortable. While many stars find themselves at peace with their channels and guides and their own personal spooks, the Hollywood Hills also appear to be haunted by a great number of American Indian ghosts who are not altogether pleased with the current occupants of their sacred ground. Then there are those such as Elk Summer, Donald Pleasance, Susanna York, Mitzi Gaynor, Ann Miller, and Susan Strasberg, who moved into homes that contained very eerie and sometimes nasty ghostly occupants. Of course, ghosts of the stars also haunt houses. Columnist Joyce Haber and her husband, producer Douglas Kramer, bought the sumptuous Beverly Hills mansion that had previously been owned by the singer Grace Moore and actor Clifton Webb. Soon after they had taken possession of the home, Joyce began finding her cigarettes ripped to shreds wherever she might leave them. At the same time, doors began opening and closing of their own volition. She finally caught the ghost of Webb a militant anti-smoker who, according to the psychic Kenny Kingston, destroyed the pack of cigarettes that she had left in a bathroom. A dentist and his wife moved into the former residence of Jean Harlow and Paul Byrne without any knowledge of its history of haunting. They had not lived there long before they were awakened one night by the sound of a feminine voice crying for help. Next they heard the sound of blows landing and felt chilling drafts around them before they were startled by the sensation of something heavy, like a human, being thrown across their bed. A few nights later, they heard sobs issuing from a corner of their bedroom. It was not long before they could take no more of the haunting and moved out. But before they did, the wife investigated and discovered that Byrne and Harlow, in some dimension of reality, continued to relive the terrible night of beating and sexual humiliation before Byrne took his own life. Christina Crawford told us of the bizarre haunting phenomenon and spontaneous fires that break out in the walls of the home that she once shared as a child with her mother, Joan Crawford. Hollywood has been described by some as a vortex of energy where multiple learning opportunities present themselves. In many ways, Hollywood is a mirror of our culture, projecting both our physical and non-physical attitudes towards ourselves on the silver screens of the darkened theaters. The great numbers of ghosts and those who perceive them may be due in large part to the high population of sensitive, creative men and women in the Hollywood area. Indeed, there may be a very fine line between the creative person who becomes a painter, a poet, a screenwriter, or an actor, and the sensitive individual who becomes a spirit medium. On the other side of that assumption, however, is the extensive research of parapsychologist Frank R., aka Nick Nasrino, who states that while there are more haunted houses in the San Francisco area of California, there are more homes in Hollywood, the Hollywood area, that are afflicted with negative or demonic activity. Not surprisingly, witchcraft, Satanism, and the black arts have fascinated the citizens of Hollywood since the days of silent films. In 1926, for example, Rex Ingram, the director of such major films as the 1921 version of The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, starring Valentino, became fascinated with the filmed W. Somerset Maugham's early novel, The Magician, which had been inspired by the notorious Aleister Crowley, the devil-worshipping Englishman who had once dubbed himself the wickedest man in the world. During the 1950s, rumors buzzed in Southern California that Crowley had lived in Pasadena long enough in the 1920s to have founded a black magic coven, whose membership had remained active and had steadily recruited new followers. There is strong evidence that Crowley sowed the seeds that would mature into the bitter fruit that nurtured the likes of Charles Manson, Sirhan Bishara Sirhan, and Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. The murders of the prominent members of the Sharon Tate Circle by the Manson family in August 1969 cast an unprecedented malaise over Hollywood. Never before had the stars felt so threatened in their own homes. Graphic news stories of the horrible carnage and photographs of the words "Death to Pigs" scrawled in human blood on the walls of the Polanski home burned indelible images of fear into the psyches of Hollywood royalty who had previously held themselves inviolable. Incredibly, Sharon Tate had had a vision preview of her murder nearly 2 years before the actual event. And psychic Ernesto Montgomery, who tried months in advance to warn the residents of the neighborhood where the assassins struck that prominent Hollywood figures would be slain there. There seems little question that the inquiring but sometimes jaded minds of far too many stars have become ensnared in the more sinister webs of the supernatural. Jane Mansfield's flirtation with Satanism, as you will read later on, may have brought upon her the malediction that left her decapitated in an automobile accident. We will delineate the perverse manifestation of destructive energy that culminated in the tragic deaths of Sharon Tate and her friends, and we will present our findings in a manner that will expose the maddeningly seductive devil's dance for the distortion of the light that it truly represents. So amidst the tales of ghosts and haunted mansions, spirit seances, bizarre cult activity, and the rampages of occult-inspired assassins, there are numerous Hollywood stars who are engaged in a serious examination of higher levels of spiritual experience. Sincere men and women are seeking to explore those aspects of human activity currently deemed supernatural and are attempting to divine the future in ways that will benefit the entire planet and usher in a new age of peace and hope. As Hollywood so often leads and inspires rather than simply reflects our culture at large, there may well be the elements of a new and worthwhile understanding of what is truly human and what is divinely supernatural, evolving somewhere in those glittering Hollywood hills. So, let's see. I think we'll go to break. We do have a couple minutes before 50 minutes, and we could wait till the top of the hour. Let me see how long this chapter is. Yeah, we can go ahead and start reading. Or wait till a little later. So, 1. Hollywood stars who have met the supernatural. It has often been observed that the Los Angeles area offers the seeker an entire supernatural supermarket, from which to choose the form of spiritual expression that most suits his or her individual taste. While the citizens of Hollywood may select from all the representative churches and synagogues of Orthodox America, there are also far more metaphysical, occult, Eastern experimental, and New Age faiths than one would find in either Lubbock or Dallas. In the 1930s, Guy and Edna Ballard brought the I Am movement with its unveiled mysteries to Los Angeles. The Ballards claimed to communicate with the ascended masters, cosmic beings of great wisdom, power, and love, and with Count Saint-Germain, a French aristocrat of the 18th century who walks eternally through time and space. The Count and the other masters live on today in the work of Elizabeth Clare Prophet and the Summit Lighthouse. In 1951, Earlene Chaney, who had been a fast-rising starlet, appearing in such films as Kiss and Tell in 1945 with Shirley Temple, discovered that she could speak to entities on higher levels of consciousness and formed Astara with Robert, her spiritualist minister husband. Dr. Earlene's messages from Kuthumi, Rami, and Zoser have brought several Hollywood stars to speak from the Astara pulpit. Wouldn't that be grand? Welcome to Supermarket. Get your KTs ready while shopping. Make sure you whip out that, what the hell, SLS camera. I almost forgot the name of it. Is that SLS? Yeah, I believe so. Your Connect Cam. Let's get some stick figures going. What the hell are those stick figures doing in that aisle? Kids, turn your head. You don't want to see this. L. Ron Hubbard, best known for his tales in such magazines as Astounding Science Fiction, wrote the classic book Dianetics in 1950 and created the movement of Scientology, which prospers today with such devotees as John Travolta, Karen Black, and Sonny Bono. Actually, when I was working at this aesthetic place, we had a booth set up at this women's some sort of women's meeting where there's all kinds of booths set up and women can go and get different things, and these two ladies were like totally stalking me and gave me one of those Dianetics books, and I took it home and Vern's like, what the hell do you have? I'm like, no, these nice ladies gave it to me, and they actually had this camera that could like read your eyes and tell you stuff about yourself. There's no Zoser, only Zool. Okay, it's an SLR. That's what I thought. SLS, SLR, science fiction, Catch that Loch Ness monster. Get it. Get it. You better hurry up and get it, Aster. It's gonna get away. You better go to that Astera pulpit and preach about the Loch Ness in the Biggie-foot. The mystic with the mostest, Krishnaventa, was murdered in 1958 at his Fountain of the World headquarters in Box Canyon, California, when some very disgruntled followers with some very material dynamite decided, holy shit, this is going to get ugly, kids. Kids, turn your heads! Oh yeah, they wanted to transform Krishnaventa into a woolly, immaterial substance. In the 1960s, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi made transcendental meditation a household word not only in Hollywood, but throughout the world. Of course, he did have a little help from some very important friends, namely the Beatles and Mia Farrow. What is it, son?
I think I hear your show on Mel's dad's phone.
Yeah, cute. Mm-hmm. We have a follower. Okay, son. Well, you can't be in here while I'm doing the show. Nobody can see you.
Hello and goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye, my son.
Goodbye.
Well, hugs and kisses. I love you.
Love you too.
You're a good boy.
Don't lose your place.
I won't. And look at how I'm holding my book. This is how people actually read. It's amazing. You should have seen the way he was reading his book the other day. He had it turned sideways. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? I'm telling your teacher. How you're reading right now. Here's a follower. We have damn stalker. Alright, here we go. Let's get back to Mr. Maharishi. So, where did that fucking hair come from? That was weird. The hair just fell from the sky. Maybe we should take it in for genetic testing. This could be from some ultra amazing psychic guru. You never know. Maybe it's Aleister Crowley's hair. Gross, get off. Disgusting. That's just disgusting. Alright, so the Maharishi opened the golden gates of Hollywood to other Indian-oriented mystical movements such as Swami A.C., Bhaktivedanta International Society of Krishna Consciousness, Paul Twitchell's Ekankar, Sababa, and Baba Ramdas, who, in an early incarnation during the Harvard LSD drug days, yeah, right, I know it was LDS, you don't have to lie to me. Anyways, Harvard LSD drug days had been Timothy Leary's associate, Richard Alpert. Imagine that. Desi Arnaz Jr. is the national spokesperson for the reality that mystic Vernon Howard offers to people. Ali Sheedy assists Brother Charles in moving his synchronicity meditation tapes. There seems little question that in such a heady spiritual environment, the citizens of Hollywood would have to be acutely aware of their own spontaneous interactions with the supernatural. Alright, so on that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our music break. We're going to try this again. We're going to replay this music break from last week. So we have Miss Mia Savage with Antidote from Savages. She's going to sing Bury Me in Heaven, Singing to Your Grave, and Our New Reality. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. Enjoy.
letter. reality. You don't need all the shit that he brings anymore. You're mine. You're mine. Tonight. You're mine. You're mine. You're mine.
You know, if I'm being honest with you as well as myself, I'm getting a little slow in my old age. Jeepers creepers. So Robert's over here while I'm reading, making some jokes. Robert, you're hilarious, my friend. You're really cracking me up today. So here he is saying,
Look how good I did this.
oh, wait, we have Mr. Interruptus, Floyd Peterson. Wow,
I wonder
son.
what curtains.
Look at how good. He's like becoming a master like his mother on the damn Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, and I made the curtains the same height.
Dude, you should be an interior designer and you can just show it to people with the Etch-a-Sketch. So is that lipstick on your lip or what is that
Fun
stuff?
dip.
Fun dip? Okay, I was about to say, you and Mel are getting to be pretty fast friends. You better slow down there a little bit.
What do you mean by that?
Maybe she was wearing some lipstick and gave you a little kissy poo on your mouth.
No!
Are you
Try
sure?
to make the house around it. Hold up. I think I know how.
Okay. Well, anywho's. Okay, so he's over here making jokes. I already read you the supermarket. Get your KTs ready while you're shopping. And the whole Zool thing, yes. SLR, he corrected me there. Thank you. Science fiction. Catch that Loch Ness monster. Then we have... So, he was not shot, so he wasn't a Holy Krishna. And it took me a while to get that. Like, during break, I'm just looking at it like, okay, there's Hare Krishna. Now I see Holy Krishna. Would you stop doing that on the wood? You're, like, making some abrupt, like, ticka noises. Ticka. He's hip. He's with it. He's actually using technology from when we were kids. That damn Etch-a-Sketch. I actually impressed myself. It's been years since I've been on an Etch-a-Sketch, and last night I was able to make the most impressive little hand puppet, which was a rabbit. Yeah, I was quite impressed with myself. But yeah, the whole Holy Krishna thing, I was like, bah! Ha! Now I get it. Good one. Yeah. So that's what I was talking about getting a little slow in my old age. No. Say it and so. Yes, it's true. And I can't see either, like, you know, used to be I just wear my glasses at night because, you know, I have astigmatism. But now, like, even standing 5 feet away from the Subway freaking menu on the wall, I'm squinting and giving it very dirty looks. What are you saying? How much is that? How many calories? How much is that? I can't see. What does it say? Floyd, can you read me the menu next time we go out? Because I can't see it when it's on the wall. It's too far away. Never mind. I'll just wear my glasses. What is that?
A lamp.
Oh, now he just made a lamp next to his window and curtains that he has on this little mini Etch-a-Sketch. Very impressive, son.
Look what I did. I actually just...
That's amazing. You're hired. When can you start?
For what?
Alright. You can start immediately.
No!
Alright, get out of here.
I don't want to.
We're trying to do a show. You're messing up the whole Hare Krishna. No. I have to read. I can't play Etch-a-Sketch. But maybe later.
Oh, dang it.
I know.
Etch-a-Sketch it.
I love you, boy.
Etch-a-Sketch it. I love you too, Mom.
Alright, be good. No more kissing on the girl, okay?
I'm not.
I'm not. Yeah, he's pretty smitten with the lovely Miss Mel. They've been like kind of joined at the hip since she's been here. I thought it was going to be her and Lily because they were fast friends when we met in Phoenix a couple years ago Was it a few? 3 years ago? 2 years ago? How many freaking years ago was that? Anywho's, yes, they met. They were really good friends. Now they're playing again. She was feeling a little left out for a bit because, Mel and Floyd were very, they're the same age. They're in the same grade, so it's pretty cool. I wonder if she's going to end up in his class. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Alright, so let us continue with the book, Hollywood and the Supernatural by Miss Sherry Hansen-Steiger and Brad Steiger. Delightful job so far. I'm really enjoying this book. I wish the print was a little larger, because like I said, getting old, can't see. I need to put on my spectacles. So when Academy Award nominee Gary Busey, the Buddy Holly story in 1978, suffered a near-fatal motorcycle accident on December 4th, 1988. Remember that when poor Gary Busey got all messed up, even more messed up than he was before? Now he's really, really messed up. Anywho's, it seemed as though the actor's career was finished. However, 2 weeks later, according to Busey, a supernatural being appeared to him in the corner of his room at Daniel Freeman Hospital and informed him that it was not yet his time to pass over. The actor still had gifts that he must share. It was such positive reinforcement that enabled Gary Busey to stay on the road to recovery. Another Oscar nominee, Sigourney Weaver, said that she had been aware of the spirit presence of naturalist Dian Fossey protecting her while she was in Africa filming Gorillas in the Mist in 1988. She actually did a really good job of that. I was pretty convinced. Comedian Robin Williams has left his Mork and Mindy days far behind with such box office hits as Good Morning Vietnam in 1988 and Dead Poets Society in 1989 to his credit. And let's not forget Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello! Anywho, I had to do that little shout out there for Mr. Chris Garcia. He's actually going to be on next Saturday. You guys tune in. Make sure you call for your free psychic reading with the one and only Psychic Chris Garcia. Anywho's, so Williams has said that he has experienced several accurate prophetic glimpses into his future and states that he also meditates, uses creative visualization, and believes in past lives. One of his own, he says, was as a Shakespearean actor. I can actually see that. Especially how good he did with Mrs. Doubtfire. Like, I couldn't even tell. That ain't no woman? No. Shit you not. That's Mr. Robin Williams right there. He used to be a Shakespearean actor back in the day. Don't you remember that? So Jack Scalia, the television star of Wolf, stood on a windowsill of a hotel in Munich, totally burned out on drugs and alcohol. He's like, shit, I'm about to end this. Yeah, hey, Harry, come over here. Hold my beer. Watch this. Yeah, he stood on the windowsill. He was ready to end it all, and he was about to jump when he had a spiritual experience that turned his life around. God revealed that he had more in store for the actor. I wonder how exactly he did that. Like, can I have some more detail? You're kind of skipping over the really good details. I need to know. Because actors are, first of all, human beings. I thought they were animatronics, or as Lily would call them, animaltronics. Yeah, I love it when kids make up cool words. Because actors are, first of all, human beings, we should expect them to have at least as many spiritual experiences as the public at large. So if not more because of their public celebrity. So in January and February of 1987, in an issue of American Health, well-known priest, author, and sociologist Father Andrew Greeley, together with colleagues at the University of Chicago and the University of Arizona in Tucson, revealed that nearly half of American adults, 42%, believe they have been in contact with someone who has died, usually a deceased spouse or sibling. More statistics from Father Greeley's national survey noted that 29% of the adult population in the United States admit to having had visions, 31% claim to have experienced clairvoyance, and 73% believe in life after death. The fact that the citizens of Hollywood, percentage-wise, appear to be and have far more supernatural encounters than the general adult population may be due in large part to the fact that the kind of sensitivity that it takes to be a successful actor, screenwriter, director, and so forth may be very much akin to the kind of sensitivity necessary to tune into the unseen world of the supernatural. In this section, we shall examine the experiences of Hollywood stars who have encountered the supernatural in their own lives, whether it was a premonition of one's own death or a spiritual rebirth. Ah. Valentino speaks from the spirit world. Ooh, very spooky. Turn back, beware, beware. Yeah, sorry, trying to erase these songs from last break. We don't want to repeat, even though I love all her music, and I would listen to it on repeat. Anywho, in 1923, a moviegoers poll listed Rudolph Valentino as the most popular motion picture star in the United States, trailing the dark-eyed Latin lover where Wallace Reed, the all-American type, Douglas Fairbanks, an athletic swashbuckler, and Tom Mix, a rough-riding cowboy, yeehaw, and two comedians, Harold Lloyd and Charlie Chaplin. Valentino had upset the early conventional Hollywood image of the blue-eyed Anglo-leading man and had managed to stir the hearts of millions of women who sat in darkened theaters suffering from unrequited love. Why won't he love me? It is unlikely that more than a scant handful of those legions of women who fantasized about being in the passionate sheik's arms were aware that the decisive and commanding screen hero in real life followed the dictates of Mesalope, his spirit guide. Next we have, the great lover was guided by an ancient Egyptian. Sid George? Oh, George. Oh, now it's George. It's not George anymore. So if you know anybody named George, now you must know his name is George. Sid George Ullman, Valentino's agent, was annoyed with Rudy's and his wife's obsession with spirit writing and their complete reliance on the old Egyptian to guide and direct them. They never made a movie without consulting this power, Ullman said. They were never surprised by the unexpected. Rudy's wife, Natasha Rambova, yeah, that sounds better, claimed powerful mediumistic abilities, and she communicated with Mesalope through light trance states or through the Ouija board. The couple attended seances in every city where they played on a dancing tour of the country. Valentino had always considered himself mildly psychic. Mildly. Kind of like that sauce on the nachos that Jazz sent me. Robert's over here making jokes. Jato's tempting me with nachos. Can't these people just let me read? She became very excited with the prospect of more completely developing his talent, extrasensory talents, and tutored him in the occult with great enthusiasm. Yeats visits Hollywood with his spirit guide. Hopefully his spirit guide didn't yeet himself. Anyways, it is interesting to speculate whether Natasha and Rudy might have been influenced by the experiments in spirit contact that had been conducted by another glamorous couple who had visited the Hollywood Hills only a few years before their own interaction with Mesalope. The brilliant Irish poet William Butler Yeats, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923, had discovered that his wife was extremely successful in the esoteric realm of spirit communication. It is while they were on a lecture tour in the Los Angeles area that Yeats determined that their guide could answer questions put to it while his wife lay entranced. Yeats identified his spirit guide as Leo Africanus. Well, what a very spectacular, what is the word? Prolific last name, Africanus. Ooh. Leo Africanus, who was actually a 16th century traveler, poet, and geographer. His spiritual instructions, the word I was looking for was exotic. Now I got it. Told you I'm a little slow in my old age. Were often accompanied by strange sounds and peculiar, unexplainable odors. Yeats might have had some yeast going on. I don't know. Some of those odors can get pretty weird. What's that odor you're wearing, Bethel? Is that yeast bread? Is that sourdough? Please tell me your secret. Who inspired that lovely, delicate scent you're wearing? Anyways. Yeats' verse most certainly was affected by his dabbling in the occult, and the imagery of his poetry is strongly influenced by the experiences he shared with the remarkable world of the paranormal. The mass hysteria surrounding Valentino's funeral. When Valentino died, supposedly of a burst appendix, though a few theories differ from that, on August 24th, 1926, I just got the word poisoned. Anywho's, the New York City police were confronted with the worst display of mass hysteria and unrestrained anarchy since the bloody Civil War draft riots of 1863. I'm getting ahead of myself here. The death of America's so-called love god at the youthful age of 31 set loose unruly mobs in the heart of metropolitan New York City. An estimated 80,000 people were caught up in the emotional frenzy of mourning the great lover, hundreds of whom were trampled underfoot by maniacal legions. Valentino had come to New York City to premiere his latest film, Son of the Sheik, which was created in 1926. And gossip columnists had teased readers, now we have readers, with the account of where the crack was I. Oh my gosh, Becky, look at her butt. Okay, so they had teased readers with accounts of how the handsome actor was eager to return to the arms of his latest love, Pola Negri. Natasha Rambova, who had recently divorced Valentino, was in Europe at the time of his death. That doesn't mean she couldn't have hired somebody to poison him, because automatically, my inclination, the voice that speaks in my head said, poisoned, was not appendix. Okay, so Natasha channels Rudy. So upon her return to the States, Natasha quickly established herself as the high priestess of the cult of Valentino. Wow. It was only natural, she explained in front-page newspaper stories, that Rudy should choose her as the instrument by which to communicate messages of spiritual comfort to his devoted fans. After all, Natasha boldly asserted, their psyches had been the most dynamically intermeshed on the earth plane. Valentino's first spirit communication had come 3 days after his death, while she was in southern Europe. With the age of George B. Winner, it's spelled W-H-N-E-R, not W-E-I-N-E-R, a trance medium, she had managed to conduct lengthy discussions with her former husband, and she shared highlights of those messages in numerous interviews that appeared in newspapers and magazines. The following questions were answered by Natasha. What was Valentino's reaction to his funeral? Great happiness. As he watched the mobs fighting for a view of his body, he realized his great popularity as he never had before. He also then knew that he had lost by being taken to the other side. To him, it was wonderful but cruel. What was Rudy's immediate reaction after his death? He was lonely. He could not reach his friends. He could not touch their sorrow. He tried to talk to them, but they could not hear. Of course, he also felt the loss of adulation. Soon, however, the interests of the astral world began to hold him. Now he is radiantly happy, anxious to begin his work there. Has he met any fellow movie stars on the other side? He has named Wally Reed, Barbara Lamar, and Olive Thomas. He has been most interested in meeting and talking with Enrico Caruso, who was, of course, the idol of so many young Italians. Rudy also met the personal friends with whom we used to communicate by means of automatic writing. They have explained the astral world to him, and he is slowly coming to comprehend the sublime qualities of the new life about him. Does Valentino know of the great sorrow that swept the world at his death? Naturally, he was conscious of the world's sorrow. It was visible all about him. It tortured him in those unearthly, earthbound days. What earthly success does Valentino remember? He remembered all at first. Rudy wandered the film theaters where his last film, Son of the Sheik, was being shown to sorrow audiences. He walked his old haunts on Broadway, particularly around 47th Street, where he used to spend many hours of his early penniless dancing days. He suffered because his old friends used to pass him by unknowing. He tried to speak to them, but to no avail. He shouted, "I am Rudolph Valentino!" But they did not hear him. It was hard for him to understand. He was just as alive, but in a different vibration. As Rudy has grown in astral knowledge, however, these earthly recollections have lost their appeal. The old glamour of Earth people is passing. Our world is growing fainter. Has Valentino any message for his old host of worshippers? Yes, he has a message for everybody. He wants the Earth people to know. Oh, hello, Earth people. Greetings, Earthlings. Yeah, so he wants the Earth people to know that to realize that there is no death and no separation. He wants them to accept and believe in the beauty and perfection of the afterlife. If he were to be born again, would he attempt another motion picture career? He would attempt whatever circumstances permitted. He would have to meet the problem and challenges of that Earth life. How do you know that it is really Rudy who is speaking to you and not some other spirit? When we receive a telephone call from another city, how do we know who is speaking? From mannerisms, from thoughts, from topics of conversation. Every message from Rudy undeniably has carried authentic earmarks. What is the meaning of marriage on the astral plane? Marriage is physical and of the earth. If, however, this union is sincere and real, the spiritual contacts remain the same after one's passing. It is my spiritual closeness with Rudy that enables me to receive his messages. Encounters with the spirit of Rudolph Valentino. As might have been expected of such a passionate entity as Valentino, his ghost could not be satisfied with mere communication through his former wife. It was not long after the great screen lover's untimely death that stories began to circulate about Rudy's spirit form having been seen at certain of his favorite locales. Falcon Lair, the dream home that he had built with Natasha, became the most frequently reported place for the ghost manifestation of Rudolph Valentino. Although the number of fans who trespassed on the grounds in hope of seeing Rudy's ghost became a security problem, a fortunate few managed to beg or bribe their way into Valentino's own bedroom to spend the night in the mansion. Accounts of spirit kisses and impassioned messages abound among the faithful. One of the most popular of Valentino's spirit legends tells of Stabler, who left the grounds without bothering to collect his belongings when he saw the ghost of the master petting his favorite horse at sunset one evening. Another account, as the caretaker running down the canyon in the middle of the night, screaming that he had encountered Rudy's ghost face to face. A woman from Seattle, who was a friend of the caretaker's at Falcon's Lair, claimed that she had been alone in the mansion writing a letter when she heard footsteps and saw doors open and close. Her only companions at the time had been Rudy and Brownie, Valentino's two favorite Great Dane watchdogs trained to bark and to snap at everyone except their master. The great lover's ghost continues to be sighted in the shadows of the city that made him an international legend. In April of 1989, a young actress said that she encountered the amorous spirit as she lay in bed. According to her account, she felt a heavy weight pressed down on the edge of her bed as she was drifting off to sleep one night in the old apartment building known as Valentino Place, which, according to Hollywood tradition, was once an elegant party site favored by the sheik and his intimates. For several minutes, the 28-year-old actress was too paralyzed by fear to move. The body of what she assumed to be a man then stretched out beside her, she who was covered only by a thin sheet. As he pressed up to her and began breathing heavily, she at last had the courage to open her eyes. I saw the handsome face of Valentino lying on my pillow, she said. I was so terrified that the man was actually Valentino's ghost that I fainted. When she recovered, she was relieved to see that although the ghost had left the bedsheets and pillow in complete disarray, it had returned to whatever dimension of reality it now called home. John Barrymore's mystical quest for regeneration. In his youth and growing maturity, John Barrymore established an immortal niche in Hollywood's Hall of Fame. The youngest of the fabulous Barrymores, which included his sister Ethel and brother Lionel, the handsome Jack, who became known as the Great Profile, had tremendous talent and an enthusiastic following. Tragically, the stirring quality of his work in such films as Beau Brummel in 1924 and The Sea Beast and Don Juan, both in 1926, became overshadowed by his later disillusions. Towards the end of his career, his once fabled memory had deteriorated to such an extent that he could no longer remember the lines in Hamlet long enough to make the film a Shakespearean classic. The root of Barrymore's problem lay in alcohol. His legendary drinking bouts at times earned him the nickname of the Monster from even his closest friends. As even his dependency upon his firewater grew and incidents of his outrageous behavior increased, his popularity decreased and he became a caricature of his former self. One of his early successes in film had been in the dual-title role of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1920, in which he had managed to distort his handsome classic features into the grotesque Hyde without the assistance of makeup. The sad reality that life was imitating art in his own life was not lost upon Barrymore. He was rapidly becoming Mr. Hyde. In 1934, his marriage to the prominent 30s actress Dolores Costello on The Rocks, Barrymore was informed by his doctors that unless he stopped drinking immediately, he would very shortly die. Such an announcement set him off on the desperate quest for mystical regeneration. I wonder if he's related to Miss Drew Barrymore. That'd be interesting. They're actually, I remember seeing a poster in an old theater that was actually her grandmother, I believe, because it was a 1920s poster. So that must have been Dolores Costello. All right, so a retreat to Mother India. John Barrymore had heard of the Ayurvedic treatment offered in India. Hoping that it would cure him, he determined to leave both Hollywood and Broadway behind, stating that he was rejecting wives, lovers, and false friends to spend the rest of his life in quiet study and meditation in Mother India. When he arrived, he contacted Dr. Srinivasa Murthy, who disappointed him because he appeared as brisk, middle-aged man dressed in Western-style clothes. Barrymore had been expecting a bearded, robed guru. Dr. Murthy described the Ayurvedic treatment as consisting of a combination of spiritual factors and medical applications, with the regimen including a vegetarian diet and the use of certain special herbs, essences, and leaves from the Himalayan mountains. The treatment would take 6 weeks and require no hospitalization. Barrymore was told that the decision to stop drinking would have to be a personal one. Dr. Murthy stressed that he could make the actor no promises and added that he had reason to doubt that the American had the necessary discipline to undergo the Ayurvedic process. Barrymore assured the doctor that he had faith in the method and the philosophy of Ayurvedic medicine and that he would make the commitment to the treatment. After 3 weeks, the change in the actor was obvious. His memory had improved, his headaches were gone, his interest in art and music had revived, and he felt wonderful. Dr. Murthy admonished him that he must continue with the Ayurvedic treatment until it became automatic. Barrymore saw no reason why he could not. The Yogi's tragic prophecy. A few days later, while Barrymore was sitting in his car, an elderly yogi came up to him and offered to read his palm. After several minutes of silent examination, the old man told Barrymore that it would be good for him to stay in India because the land harmonized with him. That is exactly what I intend to do, sir, Barrymore replied. The yogi sighed, shook his head sadly, and told the actor he would not do as he now intended. You will return to your native land. Your life will be shortened by too much drink. Barrymore tried to laugh away the malediction, declaring loudly that he loved India and had no intention of returning to America or to his firewater. He offered the old man a rupee for his fortune-telling, but the yogi turned and walked away, refusing to accept the coin. It was not long after this strange encounter that Barrymore disappeared from his hotel and was not seen for a week. When he returned, it was readily apparent that the preceding weeks of treatment had been for nothing. Although he confessed to 7 days of non-stop drinking and carousing, he called upon his persuasive powers as an actor to convince Dr. Murphy that he had learned his lesson and that he would now unceasingly be faithful to the treatment. The doctor again accepted Barrymore as a patient, but when the actor pulled another disappearing act 2 days later and embarked on another week of revelry, Dr. Murphy washed his hands of Mr. John Barrymore. At the age of 33, the actor returned to California. In the remaining 7 years of his life, he fulfilled the prophecy that had been saddened with the old yogi in India. Had so saddened the old yogi in India. On May 29, 1942, John Barrymore died of cirrhosis of the liver. See, I thought that's what was going to kill my dad, but it was actually kidney failure because he decided he's not going to take his medication because he wants the doctor to see how bad off he is. Or that was a stupid decision. The hands of the clock foretold the hour of death. There is a curious footnote to the story of this troubled man who so deliberately drove himself to destruction. Barrymore had died at 10:20 p.m. on the night of May 29th. A few days before the actor's death, his close friend, Gene Fowler, commissioned John Decker to make a deathbed sketch of Barrymore to be hung on the wall of Fowler's den next to Richard III's sword that the actor had presented to him. When Decker delivered the sketch the day before Barrymore's death, he told Fowler that the sword looked out of place next to an old cuckoo clock and suggested that the clock be removed. Fowler refused, explaining that even though the old timepiece had not run for years, it had been a favorite of Barrymore's. It was the friend's intention to set the hands at the hour of Barrymore's death, so the clock would serve as a memorial to the actor. The morning following John Barrymore's death, Fowler was astounded when he went into the den. When the clock had stopped 2 years earlier, the hands had frozen into the exact moment of Barrymore's passing, which was at 10:20 p.m. Premonitions of death make for dramatic exits. The colorful citizens of Hollywood are famous for recognizing a good exit line and for knowing how best to dramatize it for maximum effect. Show business annals are filled with enigmatic departing statements, some delivered to packed houses while others were made privately before close friends. In some cases, the interpretation runs 50-50. Was it just an offhand remark that a quirk of fate immortalized, or did the person truly have a premonition of death? I don't think you'll see me here again. Werner Oland, a Swedish-born actor who became typecast as an Oriental, enacted the imitable detective Charlie Chan on the screen with conviction. True to his inscrutable guise, his quiet knowledge masked his acceptance of death. When Charlie Chan at Monte Carlo in 1937 was being planned, it was suddenly discovered that Olsen was nowhere to be found. He was eventually located sunning himself on the sandy beaches of Honolulu. Approached by studio representatives, he strenuously insisted that he would not appear in another Charlie Chan film. The studio prevailed as he gave in with, "All right, I guess I can do one more for you." At the completion of the film, Olsen was again approached by the directors with the script for the next Chan amid blandishments and pleas They reminded the actor that the series had been successful for more than 10 years, and that they certainly did not wish it to end. Olsen listened patiently. He was not difficult. He did not make impossible demands. He simply told them that it would not be wise to count on him. "I don't think you'll see me here again," he said softly. The studio confidently went ahead with its plans, convinced that they could again persuade Olsen to come through once more as Charlie Chan. He confounded them all. A few days later, Roland Olsen quietly passed away of natural causes. It was obvious that he had felt no need to argue with the directors and producers. He knew that the studio would have no choice other than to bow to his demise. "If I fly without Liz, it will be all over for me." When producer, promoter, movie mogul Mike Todd married superstar Elizabeth Taylor in 1957, he announced that he would never again travel alone. He named his private airplane the Liz and said that he would never be separated from his bride. They would always travel together. "If I break that vow," he told his friends, "I know it will be all over for me." And it was. The first time in their marriage that Todd ever flew alone was also his final flight. In March 1958, while he was flying to New York to attend a dinner of the National Association of Theater Owners, at which he was to be acknowledged as the Showman of the Year, the Liz plummeted through the sky to break up on the unyielding slopes of the Rockies. Was it coincidence, or had the producer of Around the World in 80 Days in 1956 and the creator of the 65mm widescreen process known as Todd A.O. had a true premonition of his death? "I'll never sing Julie again. I just won't be here." One of the most dramatic exits from the world of entertainment was that of Helen Morgan, the original torch singer who collapsed on stage. In this way, the curtain could, with true double entendre, end the act. It was an uncomfortably known fact that Helen, the manager of several speakeasies during the Prohibition era, had a drinking problem, yet her doctors all insisted that organically Helen, the star of Glorifying the American Girl in 1929 and Frankie and Johnny in 1936, was strong enough to throw off even a protracted bender. The woman who became famous for portraying fallen women had a remarkably robust constitution. Helen had made the role of the tragic Julie in the musical Showboat, originally based on the best-selling novel by Edna Ferber, her very own. She had created the role in the original Broadway production, had starred in the 1922, actually 29-part talking film version, and had repeated her Broadway triumph in James Whale's 1936 remake of the classic musical production. Helen Morgan was the only Julie. When word got around in 1941 that an all-star revival of stage version was being planned for Los Angeles and San Francisco, there could be no speculation as to the cast. Norma Terrace would be Magnolia, Howard Marsh would play Gaylord Revenant, Paul Robeson would recreate Joe, and of course Helen Morgan would do Julie. Then rumors began to drift down from the producers that the exception would be Helen, who was too unstable and could not be relied upon. Her many friends on both sides of the footlights refused to allow this injustice, and stories spread via the grapevine that other stars would not fulfill their contracts unless Helen Morgan played Julie. The fear finally resolved in compromise in which Helen would be allowed to play Julie in Los Angeles while another actress would perform in San Francisco with some trepidation. Her agent broke the news, but was surprised to learn that Helen was already at peace about the matter. "It's all right," she smiled, looking a little tired. "Don't worry about it. I'll play Los Angeles like I want to, and we won't make a fuss. Just take the money. I'll accept whatever the others are getting." Then, with a bit more of the old spark in her eyes, she stated clearly, "Los Angeles will be the last time that I'll ever do Julie. I'll never sing Julie again. I just won't be here." As surely as if she had been receiving her lines from a higher source, the words she spoke to her agent proved to be prophetic. Helen Morgan sang Julie in Los Angeles to thunderous applause, but she never sang the role again. Helen knew the role of Julie was the high point of her entire career, a friend said. It was the apex. She knew she could climb no higher. After Los Angeles, she knew that she had lost the ball game, and she simply up and quit. Everyone in Hollywood knew her to be a warm, generous person, but she could not bear the thought of anyone else playing Julie. A few weeks later, Helen Morgan collapsed on stage while singing in an old vaudeville theater in Chicago. She died in 1941 at the age of 41. Well, there's a double 41. Did each of these sensitive performers know in some way that their final exit was near? It would appear that they all followed the advice of the ultimate director and allowed the final curtain to become the veil between this world and the next. I need some nourishment on my lips. Where's the dipstick? So the next one is called Making Contact with the Spirit of William Holden. As the appealing young boxer violinist Joe Bonaparte in Golden Boy, 1939, William Holden became a star with his first real screen role. His all-American boy-next-door good looks kept him busy in a string of action-adventure films that included a number of westerns, such as Arizona in 1940 and Texas in 1941. With his service as a U.S. Army lieutenant in World War II behind him, Holden returned and began to shape a new screen persona that found dramatic expression in his Academy Award-winning performance as the tough, cynical anti-hero in Stalag 17 in 1953. He remained a rugged leading man in such classic films as The Bridge on the River Kwai, The Wild Bunch, and Network until his unfortunate death in November 16, 1981. In January 1983, a team of 4 psychic investigators from the from the Extension of Life Foundation in Durham, North Carolina, led by the foundation's president, Patricia Hayes, made a pilgrimage to Hollywood to gather in a television studio with the agreed-upon goal of communicating with William Holden's spirit by way of seance. Throughout the experiment, the investigators were in telephone contact with Hal Cope, a longtime friend of Holden's who was in Honolulu. In life, the actor had been no stranger to tales of supernatural. In the fantasy film The Remarkable Andrew in 1942, he appeared as Andrew Long, who receives a visit from the ghosts of such historical figures as Andrew Jackson. With their help, he cleans up corruption in a small town. In 1964, he made a brief appearance as a vampire in Paris when it sizzles, and in Damien, Omen 2 in 1978, he played Richard Thorne, the ill-fated and unsuspecting uncle of the Antichrist. A tingling sensation as of electricity flowing through us. Patricia Hayes told Dr. Franklin R. Rule how the seance was conducted. We sat in a circle with our hands joined. Each of us breathed deeply and concentrated on sending energy down our right arm and into the left hand of the person beside us. Within just a couple of minutes, we all felt warmth in our hands. Well, you are holding hands, aren't you? This makes no sense at all. What sort of witchery is this? Reasers with risers. Well, obviously, she must be the mouthpiece. We went all bones. I'm dead, Jem. Damn it, Jem! I'm a doctor, not a poor man. So there's nothing illusory about this experience. In addition to the heat, we all felt a tingling sensation as of electricity flowing through us. We then concentrated on forming a column of light with our minds in the center of the circle. This served as a focal point by which we could concentrate our energies. Each of us concentrated on the name of William Holden. Simultaneously, Hal Cope, his good friend in Hawaii, was concentrating on a significant episode in life that they had shared. Within 7 minutes of beginning the experiment, we had received our first telepathic communication from Holden. Patricia Hayes assessed the results of this seance in positive terms. Remarkably, William Holden made contact with our group from beyond the grave. Although the ghost of Holden did not materialize or make any utterances, the participants felt the actor's spirit did communicate physically with each of them during a 1-hour session. The circle stated that they had received confidential tidbits of information about Holden's life that only Cope could verify. To one member of the seance circle, researcher Cheryl Burns, the spirit of Holden related a confrontation that he had had with African natives over bird poaching and described an elephant hair bracelet that he had received. For investigator Janice Hayes, the entity depicted a turbulent plane ride that Holden had once experienced over the African bush. His spirit essence also confirmed through psychic William Clemma that the actor's death had been completely accidental. Most assuredly, we were in psychic communication with his spirit identifying himself as William Holden, Clemma stated. The entity acknowledged that he had too much to drink on the night of his passing and that his death was completely accidental. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we're going to go to our second music break. Holy shit, my wrist is hurting. This book isn't that heavy. I've held heavier books. So on this music break, we have Antidote for Savages with Miss Mia Savage. She's going to be singing Let Me Be Your Home, The Bottom Line, and then Lemurian Crypto. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. That was Miss Mia Savage with Antidote for Savages. What a talented, sexy bitch she is. Man, this woman. Okay, so I wanted to have her on tonight to talk about all the craziness she's been going through her travels. And so of course you've heard the story where they got trapped in this beautiful tropical oasis in Mexico. They couldn't leave because her husband got sick, or her old man, and yeah, so they were on lockdown there for a little bit, and then they finally scurried their way on over to Las Vegas, where all the sinners like to hang out. And I guess poor Ross got robbed. Holy shnikes. Let me see what she said again. I'm pretty sure that's what she said. He got robbed, so they were detained for a little while so they could make a report. So let me scroll back here. Yeah. Some dude tried to rob Ross, so I guess he didn't get robbed, but some guy tried to rob him, and they had to stay longer to file a report and whatever. End quote. I'm like, maybe you guys should stay home for a little while, because things aren't going too well in your travels recently. Luckily, they've both already had COVID. Hopefully, they don't catch it again, because she loves music. She loves to go to these techno things. As you can see, she loves the techno and making music, but yeah, I think they should just stay home for a little while. Anywho's, moving right along with our book. So we finally finished our urban legend book. I will not name the title again. It's too long. But the new book is Hollywood and the Supernatural by Sherry Hansen-Steiger and Mr. Brad Steiger. A free spirit of time and space. So, Dr. Rueper was told that Holden's spirit appeared to be darting back and forth between the seance circle in Hollywood and Hal Cope in Honolulu, delivering messages transoceanically to both locations. According to Cope, he was absolutely certain that Bill Holden's spirit was present. That night in January 1983, to the late actor's old friend, the session was truly proof of the afterlife. Can you believe it? It's freaking amazing. It is amazing. So continuing his observations, Coates said that he had immediately felt a presence in his room in Honolulu when Patricia Hayes first began to report telepathic communication from Holden. It was analogs, he explained, to the feeling of a sunburn on your face and hands. At one point during the session, I felt a presence on my right shoulder, as though Bill were standing right beside me with his hand on my shoulder. Patricia insists that the physical manifestations and the psychic perceptions sensed by the investigators could not have been transmitted telepathically by Cope. They originated from William Holden's spirit. Next we go to the mystical side of Lee Marvin. I don't want to go out like Duke, aka John Wayne, having to be helped up on his horse, rugged actor Lee Marvin said emphatically just a few months before his death in 1987. Menahem Golan has got me talked into filming a sequel to Delta Force in 1985. It seems that he has decided that my character has a daughter that has to be rescued by Chuck Norris. That damn pesky Chuck Norris. Soulless ginger bastard. That will be my last action adventure film. In response to protests that he was too young to retire from films at the age of 63, Marvin laughed. I didn't say anything about retiring. I'm just going to leave the daring do to the young guys like Norris and Sylvester Stallone. I want to do comedy roles now, such as his dual role in Cat Below, for which he had won the Academy Award for Best Actor. Nah, came the actor's husky voice reply. Sophisticated comedy, drawing room comedy. Marvin was unable to surprise his fans with a new career as a comic actor, however, nor was he able to complete Golan's sequel to Delta Force, the white-haired, craggy-featured tough guy of countless action movies past in 1987. Few people knew that the tall, rough-hewn star of such films as The Wild One, Bad Day at Black Rock, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and The Dirty Dozen also had a very mystical side to his complex personality. The vision of death that saved his father's life. Morning, Mr. Morris. How are you? I hope Scotland's nice and toasty. Well, I know it's not, but you're pretty good at fires. Like me, I'm a firebug. So Lee Grimley related the story of how his father, Lamont, a sergeant in World War II, had narrowly escaped death in one of the war's worst Nazi V-2 weapon attacks by paying heed to a vision. Lamont Marvin, a veteran of World War I, was 46 years old when the United States entered World War II. Since his two sons were serving in the armed forces, Lamont decided to enlist again. He was in Antwerp, Belgium, when his near miss with death occurred. It was 1944, and the Germans had just evacuated. As the Allies moved in to occupy the territory, the Nazis bombarded them with heavy artillery and V-2 rocket-propelled bombs. On this particular day, however, there had been a lull in the blitzkrieg. Lamont happened to be walking the streets of downtown Antwerp when he came upon the Rex Theater and decided to take a few moments to look at the pictures out front. As he stood there, he heard an inner voice urging, "Hurry, hurry," but he ignored it. Then, as he continued to study the pictures, he suddenly saw the image of a telegram addressed to his wife superimposed over one of them. "We regret to inform you." Lamont did not need to read anymore. Convinced that he was seeing a vision revealing the death of either Lee or his other son, he let out an anguished cry and then ran blindly down the street. After he had ran some distance, he felt impelled to duck into a concrete doorway where he stood, panting for breath and holding his arm over his eyes filled with stinging tears. Just at that moment, a buzz bomb, one of the V-2 rockets, dropped squarely on top of the theater. Oh man, poor Mr. Morris is freezing. It's pretty cold here. Man, I can't believe it that Sleepy aka Jay hasn't frozen to death or into some sort of stiff little figurine, because man, you go from Phoenix, Arizona down here to where it's been 4 degrees, 1 degrees, and even below that. Yeah, it's pretty damn well cold. I wonder how cold it is there in Scotland. So the blast of the explosion brought searing pain to Lamont's ears. Slowly he turned his horrified eyes to behold the flaming Rex Theater disaster, where 567 persons were killed and 291 wounded, many of whom died later from their injuries. The carnage was so terrible that the July 21st, 1945 Saturday Evening Post called it the war's worst V-weapon disaster. According to the magazine article, 2 days after the bomb hit, many of the dead were still in their seats. The theater was like a grisly wax museum. According to the magazine article, yes, I just read that. So it was from this horror that Lamont Marvin had been saved. Dad ignored his inner voice, Lee pointed out, so his guardian angel, or whatever, had to give him a visual sign. When the image of the telegram materialized, he was actually seeing a notice of his own death, and he would have assuredly died if he had not run as fast as he did. The wound felt around the world. So Lee Marvin had many other stories to substantiate his firm belief in ESP, most of them concerning his family. So during World War II, Lee had been a Marine stationed in the Pacific. When he was shot in the back by a Japanese soldier, the psychic signals went out to the members of his family circle. As he was recuperating in the States, Lee learned that both his mother in America and his father in Europe had sensed that someone had wounded their son the minute that it had happened. According to Lamont, he awakened in the middle of the night with a terrible fear that Lee had been shot. He immediately looked at his clock and took note of the time. On the same night, Lee's mother opened the front door to their home and saw her son standing before her, his uniform in rags, bandages around his head. She, too, checked the time. When the three of them were reunited, they did some careful figuring of time distances and determined that at the exact time of Lick's finger changes page. Lamont's dream and his wife's vision, Lee had been shot in the back somewhere in the Pacific. "There's only one thing wrong, Ma," Lee said to his mother after they had discussed the telepathic transfer. "You were mistaken about the bandages on my head. It was in the back that I was shot." But where did it hurt the most, his mother wanted to know. Lee had admitted that the pain was most severe in his head, strange as it seemed. Experiences such as these had long ago convinced Lee Marvin of the reality of extrasensory perception. To him, the power within had become an integral and vital facet of life. A psychic healer's accurate diagnosis. In August 1986, while visiting with Marvin in the actor's comfortable home in Tucson, Arizona, we learned of his experiences with a mutual friend, Colin Lambert, a remarkable healer from New Zealand. Those fuzzy, funny Kiwis. Well, Colin said that he detected... Well, here, hold on a sec. Lee had first met Colin at a friend's house in Malibu in 1983. He was doing some work on some people there, so I jumped up on a table and submitted myself to his procedure of healing. Lambert doesn't place his hands on the body, but keeps them just above. Colin said that he detected a medical problem in Marvin's lungs. "I wasn't feeling sick at the time," Marvin said, "but Colin kept saying that I had a lung problem. He couldn't precisely state what the problem was and what was wrong, but he sensed that I would be experiencing difficulties in that area." Shortly after, Marvin flew to Europe to make a film and arrived feeling ill. X-rays indicated that I had contracted pneumonia and I received medical treatment, but some months later, when I returned to the United States and still hadn't fully recovered, I had additional tests. This X-ray revealed that I had valley fever, which is often mistaken for pneumonia. Don't they have that in Arizona when you guys get those habibs, or maybe it's hashish? Is it a haboob? I always like to call it a haboob, but I think it's a habib. Anyways, I'm pretty sure it's called valley fever. My sister's gotten it before. Oh, yes, here it is. It just answered my question. Residents of Arizona and other southwestern states are well aware of valley fever, a rare fungal disease that can trigger meningitis. Once contracted, it takes its victims a long time to accomplish a full recovery. "It took me a full year to recover from it," Marvin stated, but Colin Lambert was right on the spot in his diagnosis long before I was, aware of any health problems, and long before it was confirmed by a physician. To Lee Marvin, the psychic diagnosis of Colin Lambert was yet another proof of the inner powers that belong to each of us. As the actor phrased it, for our colleague, Dr. Franklin R. Rule, "I am now convinced that there is no limit to the power of the mind to heal the body." So the next one is Corinne Calvet's rebirth as Corona. Great, let's go there. Yeah, let's do that. So Corinne Calvet made her American debut as Burt Lancaster's in Rope of Sand, 1949. And most movie buffs will remember her as the pre-Bardot French sex kitten who was imported by Hollywood to Gaelic sultriness and allure to more than a dozen movies in the 1950s. Although critics generally said that the shapely actress handled her roles quite well in such motion pictures as What Price Glory and Thunder in the East, Corinne's memories contain little affectionate nostalgia for her past cinematic accomplishments. "They keep me in those insipid movies and tried to type me. I had about 86 words of dialogue in 17 pictures. I said the same thing all the time," and I've heard this repeatedly from other actors back in the day that were typecasts. It's like, I have barely any words and all I have to do is strut around. So then, in about 1972, Corinne Calvet was reborn as Corona. Sitting cross-legged in a thick pillow of the wooden floor of her apartment, she explained, I think the best way to describe what has happened to me is to say that Corona's soul was living in Corinne Calvet's body. A part of my ego wanted all of these things that Corinne Calvet was able to obtain, like fame and luxury and position and admiration and recognition and all those ego trips that we all go through. In the attempt for me to obtain those things, I pushed back the stronger force within me, which I knew was present and which I was constantly aware. With the apartment heavy with the scent of incense and sitar music issuing from a stereo set connected to a series of flashing lights, Corona spoke of how she had constantly attended the stronger force within her by first examining dogmatic religions and then by studying at self-realization centers in Los Angeles. I received the understanding of science of yoga as taught by the Paramahansa Yoganananda, and I eventually received the blessing that made me Corona, which means compassion. Oh, does it? Yes. Riddle me this. Just kidding. So the actress had undergone her first mystical experience in early childhood. I think my first manifestation on that level was the night before my first communion, when I had a dramatic vision of the Last Supper. I walked out of my bed as if I were sleepwalking to behold it. As far as I am concerned, I was there, and they were there, as much as you are here now. Corona stated that the only plan she had now made for the future was simply to be of service. If I had a plan, I would not be available for the work that is coming, so I live in the flow, and know that if I live in the flow, everything that is supposed to come my way will have a chance to appear. Then I will do it. Corona said that she could not remember a time when she did not have visions and revelatory experiences, but added that Corinne's ego continually pushed back the stronger force within her, the Corona awareness. Yes, haven't we all been subjected to Corona awareness? Some of us perhaps more than others. Let's shove it down your throat. Just kidding. This is talking about a person, not the damn disease. Anywho's, when Corona did emerge as a result of the spiritual discipline of yoga training, she assumed a new name along with her new identity. Today, in seminars and workshops throughout the country, Corona continues to be of service. Indeed, my friend, indeed. Touché! The psychic world of Shirley Maclaine. Don't you remember her back in the day when she used to play those movies? So no doubt can exist that Academy Award-winning actress Shirley Maclaine has had a remarkable influence upon the current psychic scene in Hollywood, not to mention the rest of the United States and overseas. Although she has never sought the position of high priestess or of metaphysics, thousands of her admirers have awarded her such an unofficial title with the respect that they pay her. Then there are the facts. More than 10 million copies of her books are in print, one of which, Out on a Limb, created and published in 1983, served as the basis for a popular 2-part television movie. In recent interviews, Shirley emphasized that she does not wish to become anyone's New Age guru. She has even stopped teaching her seminars in order to correct what had become a widespread misconception that she was organizing her own religion. She insists that her metaphysical books, Out on a Limb, Dancing in the Light, and It's All in the Playing, and Going Within should be read as the sharing of her personal growth experiences and not as dogmatic teachings to her disciples. There's stuff going on in my life too, she pointed out. I'm not perfect. I'm very healthy spiritually, but I also have no problems, and when I have a problem, I don't hide it. I let people see that I'm just a human being trying to figure out what's going on. Granted, she does not despise the position of the great mother guru of Hollywood, but there is no denying that Shirley's outspoken propagandizing for past lives, UFOs, soulmates, channeling, and other assorted powers and properties of the mind has made unpredictable dents in the barriers that our materialistic society had erected around itself. There can be no question that because of her popularity, vast numbers of men and women who might never have explored the psychic world have now been bold enough to do so. At the same time, her high profile as an outspoken advocate of the new age requires that she grow a rather thick skin. A special fall 1989 issue of People featured 20 men and women who defined the decade of the 80s. While the profiles of such destiny darlings as Ronald Reagan, Mikhail Gorbachev, Madonna, Oliver North, Jesse Jackson, and Mike Tyson are presented rather straightforwardly, Shirley had to endure such clever smirkiness as Crystal Packin' Mama, and such cracks as, "It has been said that she had a mind like an oil drill. What a pity it struck mush." Shirley Maclaine's interest in the inner world of the psyche has evolved over a lengthy period of time, and she has extended a great deal of effort and energy into seeking her own self-mastery. Very nice. Hello, Mr. Moon. Greetings, Earthling. Take me to your dealer. Oh, never mind, that's Leader. I forgot. Excuse my ignorance. The psychic world of Shirley Maclaine. So amazing. Okay, so a quest for inner peace. I was longing for an inner peace in a competitively driven and deteriorating world, she has said. So when I met with the late Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, which I did, and the Dalai Lama, and other great Eastern masters, I learned that the basic fear in human race is the fear of death. And if death isn't real, there's nothing to fear. And in their view, it isn't real because no energy ever dies. It just changes form. That had a tremendous effect on my mind and sensibility because if we don't die, what are we afraid of? It changed my life. The sense of peace and the sense of calm it gave me was something I started living with. In her 1970 autobiography, Don't Fall Off the Mountain, she tells the night that she lay shivering in the Bhutanese house in the Paro Valley of the Himalayas, her teeth chattering as her insides tied themselves in knots. As she wondered how she might survive the terrible cold, Shirley remembered the words of a yoga instructor in Calcutta who had told her that there was a center in her mind that was her nucleus, the center of her universe. Once she had found this nucleus, he said, pain, fear, sorrow, nothing could touch her. It will look like a tiny sun, the yogi had instructed her. The sun is the center of every solar system and the reason for all life on all planets and all universes. So it is with yours. That's pretty cool. I like that. Pretty inspiring. Don't you think? What do you think, my friend? I hate when this thing on the bottom of my screen pops up. I can't see what's going on certain parts. Anywho's. Now as she lay freezing, Shirley closed her eyes and searched for the center of her mind. The cold room and the wind outside began to leave her conscious mind. Slowly, in the center of my mind's eye, a tiny round ball appeared, she wrote. Then I felt I became the orange ball. The center of the sun began to glow and to generate heat, which spread down through her neck and arms and finally stopped in her stomach. She felt drops of perspiration in her midriff and forehead. The light grew brighter and brighter until she finally sat up on her cot with a start and opened her eyes, expecting to find that someone had entered and turned on a light. She was stunned to find the room dark. As she lay back down, she felt as though she were glowing. Still perspiring, I fell asleep, she concluded. The instructor was right. Hidden beneath the surface, there was something greater than my outer self. Maintaining mind and body balance. So Shirley Maclaine has maintained her ability to achieve mind and body balance. She gained 30 pounds for her role in Madame Sasatska and retained them for her role in Still Magnolias. I loved that movie. I think that's the first movie I saw Julia Robertson. Then she shed the excess pounds so that she would return to playing roles requiring thinner women. I had no trouble taking the weight off, she said. Since I've created everything in my life, I knew I could create a thin body again, too. Going way out on a limb. In 1983, with the publication of her best-selling book, Out on a Limb, Shirley presented her readers with an extensive sharing of that something greater than the outer self that she discovered in the Bhutanese house in the freezing Himalayas. There is scarcely a page of the book that does not offer personal exploration, carefully intertwined with an attempt to provide some explanation of humankind's physical and spiritual relationship with the greater reality. Together with a confessional accounting of her love affair with a mystery diplomat of suggested British citizenship, the actress tells us of her own past lives, recounting a seemingly multidimensional experience from beyond the stars to a time in an ancient but advanced civilization 500,000 years ago. She recalls a time of terrible existence in the poverty-stricken streets of India and a more exciting lifetime in the dance halls of Paris. A memory of being beheaded cured her stage fright. Well, that's interesting. Can't wait to see what this says. So Shirley Maclaine has become one of Hollywood's most outspoken advocates of exploration of past lives. And she understands that she has lived before, both male and female. I was definitely a prostitute in some lifetimes, she has commented. It's no accident that I played all those hookers in the movies. She further believes that her daughter Shachi was her sister in one life and her mother in another. She has also learned through past life exploration that she was once a court jester, personally decapitated by Louis the Ninth for impertinence. According to Shirley, yes, I do admit my weakness is Roman numerals. Yes, Mooney is trying to walk me through it, but here I digress again. So according to Shirley, the recollection of having been beheaded actually cured her of stage fright. I watched my head rolling on the floor. It landed face up, and a big tear came out of one eye. New Age Seeker. It took me so long before I had the courage to say these kinds of things, she admitted. My friends told me that I would be killing my career if I spoke out on these subjects. Only lately has it become pragmatic to believe in New Age ideas. During the 1987 filming of the television movie of Out on a Limb, Shirley stated that entities came through and assisted the producers and directors and certain members of the crew. She expressed her delight that so many men and women were being exposed to the unseen reality. If we were to distill the essential elements in the psychic world of Shirley Maclaine from her books, her interviews, and her seminars, we would find that her lifestyle is a virtual prototype for the New Age seeker. She practices daily meditation. She communicates with her spirit guides. She uses the power of crystals in her life. She believes in reincarnation and explores her past lives. She is an empath, picking up on the thoughts and emotions of others. She accepts the values of holistic and alternative health techniques, and she seeks to remain in touch with her higher self. The real power is inside. Inside where? What are you saying? So there was a time, just a few years ago, when the talented actress, dancer, writer, metaphysician admitted to a dream of building a spiritual city with a pyramidal architecture and crystal foundations and fountains. She also envisioned a large courtyard where people can come and collectively meditate, get spiritually nourished, and then go back to life. The place would be, she stated, a kind of spiritual spa. In 1989, such plans were abandoned, or at least put on the shelf for the foreseeable future, as Shirley has confessed. I am basically a recluse. I'm happiest when I'm up in the forest with a fire going and my dogs beside me and either a tape recorder or a notebook and a pen handy, preferably raining outside, a little wind blowing, and some lightning. No telephone, No television, but only for the evening news and Entertainment Tonight, nothing else. And I could stay that way for 6 months and never leave except for go for a walk and do exercise. That's my natural personality. Each person's real talent is inside, not outside. Inside is where the real power and energy are, where the spiritual connection is made. How on earth can we touch that talent and that power without going within to touch it? That means taking as much time to go within yourself as you can. It means finding a silent environment and some music and something pretty to look at. I've been a seeker and a searcher all my life. All my traveling was about trying to find myself, and that's what the New Age is, looking into yourself to discover who you are. I need a drink. Oh, Cabana boy. Peter Sellers' Guidance from the Spirit World. It was while they were filming Being There that Shirley Maclaine and Peter Sellers discussed the eternality of the soul. As the innocent Chauncey Gardner, the brilliant British actor's last film role was a work of genius. Sellers, however, confided in his friend and co-star that he knew his motion picture characters better than he knew himself. In fact, he continued, he felt that he had been each of the characters he had played at one time or another in a past life. Sellers at that time was wearing a pacemaker, a toy contraption the doctors had left in his heart after a crucial surgery in which the actor had a near-death experience. I saw myself leaving the body, he told Shirley. I just floated out of my physical form. I wasn't frightened or anything like that because I was fine. It was my body that was in trouble. Sellers watched the doctors open his chest and massage his heart. Then he looked around and saw an incredibly beautiful, bright, loving white light above him. I wanted to go into that white light more than anything, he said. I knew that there was love, real love on the other side of the light. Sellers told Shirley that he was bitterly disappointed when the doctors brought him back into his body, but a voice had told them that it was not yet his time. He had to go back to finish his life properly. I know I have lived many times before, Sellers said, and that experience confirmed it to me because in this lifetime I felt what it was for my soul to actually be out of my body, but ever since I came back, I don't know why. I don't know what it was that I'm supposed to do or what I came back for. We can only pray along with Shirley Maclaine that the gifted actor felt that he had fulfilled his mission when he died a year and a half later in 1980. He finally got to go to that light. If you listen to BTO, he says, don't do it. It's a trap, but I don't know. I've heard so many awesome things about the light. Guided by past life memories and a spirit guide. So whether he was portraying a bumbling French detective with an undraped elk sommer clenching his trench coat, a shot in the dark in 1964, a timid librarian contemplating an extramarital affair in Only Two Can Play in 1962, or the dual roles of a power-mad German scientist and a harried American president fretting about how to stop worrying and love the bomb. Dr. Strangelove in 1963, Peter Sellers constructed nearly flawless tragicomic masks that enabled him to impersonate an enormously wide variety of characters down to the most subtle nuances. Not only did he draw upon past life memories to achieve masterful portrayals, but he was also clairaudient and able to channel who was able to hear the spirit voice that guided him. British medium Estelle Roberts identified the spirit entity that spoke to Sellers as Dan Leno, a comedian who had died around the turn of the century. In April 1959, Sellers was accompanied to a seance by fellow comic Spike Milligan, an old friend who had starred with him on the BBC's popular Goon shows. Milligan testified that Mrs. Roberts immediately brought forward the spirit of a man whom they both recognized as Larry Stevens, a talented young writer who had died on the threshold of fame. Sellers was convinced that Mrs. Roberts was relaying messages that dealt with information about which she could have known nothing. The spirit entity used words and whole phrases that only Milligan, Stevens, and Sellers had used together. Sellers recalled that he had a strange feeling all of his life that some person on the other side was taking a special interest in him and guarding him against danger. Mrs. Roberts informed him that he could just as well have become a great medium as a great actor. Sellers preferred spirits to Stanislavski or Strasberg. So although Peter Sellers protested such a change in careers, he did admit to employing a mediumistic method of opening himself up to his characterizations. Other actors might employ Stanislavski or Strasberg methods, he said, smiling, but he wanted the character to inhabit his body. I want a spirit to take charge of me so that I can produce what I hope to produce. Sellers confessed to close friends that he was aware of a whole new thing that occurred to him when he made such invocations to spirits. I think that in there somewhere is the beginning of the advanced form of mediumship, although I must think at that point that you must start thinking in terms of spirit guides because you didn't know your way around that area. You could get taken over by all kinds of wrong things. So in his 1969 biography, Peter Sellers, The Mask Behind the Mask, author Peter Evans made note of the fact that the actor discussed spiritualism with a respect that fell short of unction and with an authority that, while not dogmatic, spoke with care about a subject that was of extreme importance to him. Before Sellers met Mrs. Roberts, he had been a regular client of the British clairvoyant Maurice Woodruff, who had informed Peter that he would meet and marry someone with the initials B.E. Sellers, already married at the time, made the gossip columns on both sides of the Atlantic when he met the Swedish starlet Britt Ekland and began an almost classic Hollywood-type courtship of the young beauty. In 1964, shortly after their marriage, Sellers suffered an attack of coronary thrombosis that stopped his heart 8 times. I knew that I would not die, Sellers said. I have long held in mind a premonition that I shall live until I'm 75 and will die in my sleep shortly after that. Sellers passed away at the age of 55, but regardless of his errant power of prophecy, he felt that his clairaudience guided him in his day-to-day existence as well as assisting in the development of his film characterizations. Yes. The spirits warned of an accident for his son. Once, when Peter Sellers and his 13-year-old son Michael were staying at the actor's country place, the teenager asked permission to go horseback riding with a friend. Suddenly, the spirit voice inside his head warned Sellers, "Don't let Michael go. He'll have a bad accident." Sellers felt paralyzed, helpless. He did not want his son to go riding, but neither did he wish to spoil the lad's fun. He admonished Michael to be especially careful and then prayed. The two boys had not gone more than 100 yards from the stable when a dog ran barking across the road and startled the horses. Both Michael and his friend were thrown. Michael, very fortunately, was guided down and fell correctly, Sellers said, but his friend was kicked and quite badly hurt. I felt terrible. An overwhelming faith in spiritualism and reincarnation. In 1967, Sellers told the London Sunday News columnist Roderick Mann that he had spoken with the spirit of his mother in a séance with Mrs. Roberts. My mother even knew that I had her ring in my pocket, Sellers said, and she thanked me for some flowers and I had sent to Golders Green on Mother's Day. The actor told journalist Kenneth Teenan that his sittings with Mrs. Roberts had given him an overwhelming faith in spiritualism and reincarnation. Mrs. Roberts commented, "Peter is working out of his salvation in his own way. It is the naturalness of spirit communication that has made Peter so enthusiastic about his spiritualism. Sailors had been pleased when he discovered a kindred spirit in Shirley Maclaine while they were filming Being There, because he had always been aware that many people dismissed the spirit voice inside his head as a bit of dotiness. Although Peter Sellers may have expressed anxiety over fulfilling his true mission on Earth, the multi-talented actor continued to assert with calm assurance that he had received the answers to questions that had enabled him to resolve his religious desperation. He had also, at the same time, received the inspiration that had aided him in developing one of the world's most successful and highly respected screen careers. Hollywood stars who have met the supernatural in films. So although this book concerns itself with the actual real-life psychic, metaphysical, and spiritual experiences of citizens in Hollywood, it is certainly relevant to our theme to make note of the motion picture industry's penchant for depicting tales of the supernatural, and to point out how many major actors and actresses have appeared in at least one film that dealt with alien life forms, multidimensional beings, the ghostly, and the paranormal. Dr. Franklin R. Rule, host of the cable television series Beyond the Other Dominion, assisted us in compiling the following roster of stars who contributed to making Hollywood the world's most extensive purveyor of the supernatural. Alan Alda in the Mephisto Waltz in 1971, Alda, better known for comedy roles, such as his characterization of Hawkeye Pierce on the television series MASH, is very different as a musical journalist who becomes possessed through the satanic incantations of a moribund concert pianist, Kurt Jurgens. Dana Andrews, a Hansen minister's son, Andrews starred in such Hollywood classics as The Oxbow Incident, Laura, and The Best Years of Our Lives, then in Curse of the Demon, originally titled Night of the Demon. He battled a group of devil worshippers in London who paid obeisance to a hideous ancient demon. James Arness. Before he became television's invincible Matt Dillon in the long-running series Gunsmoke, Arness played an alien being, a giant, carnivorous humanoid vegetable who terrified a group of scientists at an isolated Arctic research station in The Thing. In them, he was a government agent trying to subdue giant ants that had taken over the Los Angeles sewer system. Fred Astaire, the recipient of a special Academy Award in 1949 for his contribution to motion pictures, Astaire, the master of the Hollywood musical, appeared in Ghost Story in 1981 as one of a group of men being stalked by a vengeful female spirit. Gene Barry in The War of the Worlds in 1953, Barry was a scientist attempting to thwart a Martian invasion of Earth. He also starred in The Devil and Miss Sarah in 1971, an offbeat western about a satanic outlaw taking possession of his tormentor's wife. Well, ain't that outrageous? Ernest Borgnine, an Academy Award winner for the Best Actor in Marty. This stocky, compelling actor was the leader of a devil-worshipping coven in The Devil's Reign in 1975. In 1978, he was the ghost of an airline navigator who warns of potential crashes in The Ghost of Flight 401. Raymond Burr, television's masterful attorney in the Perry Mason series, was not quite so smooth in The Bride of the Gorilla. Burr portrayed a scheming murderer who was transformed into a human gorilla by a witch, the mother of a native girl he had betrayed. In the classic Godzilla, he was an American newsman in Tokyo covering the story of a radioactive prehistoric monster's devastation in Japan's capital. Burr's scenes were deftly spliced into the original Japanese footage. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to share footage now. That's nice. Joan Collins and The Devil Within Her, 1975, and the manipulative Alexis of Dynasty had the role of a nightclub entertainer whose baby had been cursed by an evil dwarf. She feared little better in Empire of Ants, when Collins portrayed a real estate broker who through a transformation machine became a slave to intelligent human-sized ants. I think we're going to end with Bette Davis, and then we have to do our outro. So Bette Davis in Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, the dynamic actress turned down some of her wattage in order to play the role of an heiress who is deceived into believing she is seeing ghosts so she can be committed to an insane asylum by unscrupulous relatives. Jeez, oh Pete. Yes, it's a good time to quit reading because now I cannot even talk. I can't even form words anymore, my friend. I'm very disappointed in my mouth hole. Well, it was a good night, and I really appreciate you guys coming back and dealing with my shenanigans week after week. But thank you so much once again for joining me this evening on We Are Paradox Media's show, Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you for joining us on KPNL Radio, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you may be listening tonight. So tomorrow night, we have a wonderful guest. It was supposed to be our guest last week, but yes, we had to kill the crash and burn. Do not burn both ends of the candlestick and expect to stay up all night into the next day and then do it all over again. It does not work. But yes, we have Mr. Craig with Laura, and we're going to be talking about meditation, ways to heal yourself, as well as sounds that are good for kids, as well as sounds that are good for sleeping. You guys don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us, there is no me, there is no show, there is nothing. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here talking to myself as I used to do. Yeah, that's what crazy people do. I'm a bit crazy, a bit batshit crazy. I can admit it. So if you'd like to join us on the Skype after party, make sure you look me up at TessaTNT.com, 30@gmail.com, or give us a little ring-a-ling-a-ling-a-ding dong at 1-970-335-9596. Until next time, you guys, night-night, love and light, take care of my needs, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat place. You guys, stay safe, stay warm, and take care of my needs.